What if Issei and Xenovia married and she got pregnant of his child? The evening sky over Ko Town burned with the colors of dying embers, deep crimsons bleeding into purples and golds that reminded Issei Hayato too much of the battlefield they'd just left. Blood still stained his torn school uniform, though thankfully none of it was his own. Beside him, Xenovia stood silently, her massive Durandal dismissed back to whatever ethereal space she kept it, her own blue and white combat outfit torn and scorched but her posture still proud and straight. They'd won. Again. Another fallen angel faction eliminated, another threat to the delicate peace between the three factions neutralized. But the victories were starting to feel hollow, or perhaps Issei was simply exhausted. He'd lost count of how many fights it had been this month alone. Issei, Xenovia's voice cut through his thoughts, as direct and sharp as always. We need to talk. He turned to look at her, really look at her for the first time since the battle ended. Her blue hair was disheveled, falling loose from its usual twin ponytails, and there was a cut on her cheek that was already beginning to heal thanks to her devil nature. But her green eyes, those intense, unwavering eyes, held something he hadn't seen there before. Uncertainty? No, that wasn't quite right. Xenovia was never uncertain. Determination, yes, but tinged with something softer. Sure, what's up? Issei wiped some blood, definitely not his, from his cheek, the red gauntlet of his boosted gear fading from his arm now that the fighting was done. Not here. She glanced around at the ruined warehouse district where they'd cornered their enemies. Fires still smoldered in some buildings, and the sounds of sirens approached from the distance. The human authorities would be here soon, though the cleanup crew from the Gremory household would handle the supernatural evidence. Somewhere private. That got his attention. Xenovia wasn't one for privacy typically. She was the kind of person who'd announce her intentions to seduce him in front of the entire occult research club without a hint of embarrassment. Privacy meant this was serious. Okay, he agreed, and together they teleported using the magic circle she generated, reappearing in the park near Ko Academy. It was fully dark now, the streetlights creating pools of yellow illumination on the empty paths. They walked in silence to a bench overlooking a small pond, where moonlight reflected off still water. Xenovia sat, and Issei joined her, suddenly nervous. In all their time together, fighting, training, living in the same household under Rias Gremory's leadership, he'd seen Xenovia face fallen angels, stray devils, and worse without a trace of fear. But now, her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white. Xenovia, you're kind of freaking me out here, Issei said, trying for levity. What's going on? She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and turned to face him fully. When she spoke, her voice carried that same blunt directness he'd come to expect from her, but underneath it was something trembling and genuine. Issei Hayato, I want you to marry me. For several seconds, Issei's brain simply stopped processing. He stared at her, mouth slightly open, wondering if perhaps he'd been hit harder in the fight than he thought, and was hallucinating. What? Marriage, Xenovia repeated, as if saying it again would somehow make it less shocking. I want us to get married. To become husband and wife. To join our lives together officially. I heard you the first time. Issei's voice came out higher than intended. His heart was suddenly racing faster than it had during the battle. Xenovia, where is this coming from? This wasn't the first time Xenovia had propositioned him. She'd been extremely direct about wanting to have children with him almost from the moment she joined Rias's peerage, stating matter-of-factly that as a strong warrior, she should produce strong offspring, and Issei, with his sacred gear and devil powers, was an ideal candidate. Those requests had always been clinical, strategic even. This felt different. I'd been thinking, Xenovia began, her gaze dropping to her hands. About what I want. About what matters. When I was still an exorcist, my purpose was clear: serve God, destroy devils and fallen angels, protect humanity. Then I learned the truth about God's death, lost my faith, and became a devil myself. For a while I drifted. Combat gave me purpose, and yes, I spoke about wanting children because that seemed like a logical goal for a warrior. She paused, seeming to gather her thoughts. Issei waited, hardly daring to breathe. But fighting beside you, living with you, watching you grow from that perverted idiot who could barely control his sacred gear into someone who stands against gods and dragons without flinching. She met his eyes again, and Issei saw something in them that made his chest tight. I've developed feelings I don't fully understand. Real feelings, not just strategic considerations. Xenovia. Issei's voice was soft now. When that fallen angel had his light spear at your throat today, she continued, and I thought I might lose you, I realized something. I don't just want strong children. I don't just want a combat partner. I want you, specifically you, in my life permanently. I want to wake up next to you. I want to face whatever comes together. I want, she faltered for the first time, color rising in her cheeks. I want to build a life with you, not just fight battles. Issei's mind reeled. Xenovia, blushing and stumbling over emotional confessions, was something he never expected to see. The dragon inside him, Drake, stirred in the boosted gear, his ancient presence amused and interested. Partner, the warrior woman has claimed you. This is significant. Dragons mate for life, you know. Not helping, Drake. Issei thought back frantically. Out loud, he said, Xenovia, this is sudden, I know. She reached out and took his hand, her grip strong but trembling slightly. I know I'm not romantic. I know I'm blunt and awkward with these things. I know there are other girls who have feelings for you, who might be better at. Stop, Issei interrupted gently. He squeezed her hand. Just, give me a second to process. He thought about Xenovia. Really thought about her. She'd been part of his life for what felt like forever now, though it had only been a couple of years. He'd watched her journey from enemy to ally to friend to, what? What was she to him? He thought about the way she fought with absolute conviction, never holding back, trusting him to have her back as she had his. He thought about quiet moments between battles, her asking surprisingly deep questions about philosophy and purpose. He thought about her terrible cooking that she kept trying to improve, her competitive nature that pushed him to be better, her rare smiles that felt like treasures because she gave them so sparingly. He thought about how, despite all the girls in his life, Rias, who he'd admired and desired for so long, Akino with her seductive teasing, Asia with her pure devotion, Kaniko's quiet affection, it was Xenovia who understood the weight of combat, who never asked him to be anything other than himself, who matched his intensity and passion in every way. I'm not going to lie and say I haven't thought about it, Issei admitted. About us. About what we could be. But Xenovia, marriage is serious. It's not just about strong feelings or good partnership. It's a commitment, a promise. And with everything we face, with the danger we're constantly in, all the more reason, Xenovia cut in, her grip on his hand tightening. Life is short and uncertain, especially for people like us. We could die tomorrow. I don't want to die wondering what if. I don't want to waste time being uncertain when I know what I want. Issei looked at her, this fierce warrior woman who'd given up everything she'd known to stand beside him, who'd faced the death of her god and rebuilt herself into something stronger, who was now offering him her heart with the same courage she showed in battle. You're right, he said quietly, her eyes widened. I am? Life is uncertain. We fight constantly, risk everything regularly. And maybe that's exactly why we should grab happiness when we can find it. He brought his free hand up to cup her cheek gently. Xenovia, you're amazing. You're strong, brave, honest to a fault, and you've stood by me through everything. I'd be an idiot to say no. Then, you're saying yes? Her voice was barely a whisper, hope and disbelief warring in her expression. I'm saying yes, Issei confirmed, and felt his own heart soar as he said it. It felt right. Crazy, sudden, probably going to cause enormous complications, but right. Xenovia, I'll marry you. Let's do this crazy thing together. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then Xenovia launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around him in a crushing hug that would have hurt if he weren't enhanced by devil power. She buried her face in his shoulder, and Issei felt wetness seeping through his shirt. Are you crying? He asked, amazed. No, Xenovia said, voice muffled and definitely choked with tears. Warriors don't cry. This is tactical moisture release. Issei laughed, pure and genuine, and hugged her back just as tightly. Okay, tactical moisture release. Got it. They sat like that for several minutes, just holding each other under the moonlight, the magnitude of what they'd just decided settling over them. Eventually, Xenovia pulled back enough to look at him, her eyes red-rimmed but blazing with determination. "We'll need to tell everyone," she said, suddenly practical. "Riaspucho will need to approve since we're both part of her peerage. There will be political implications. A devil marrying a former exorcist is unprecedented. The church will have opinions. The devil nobility will have opinions. Everyone will have opinions. Let them," Issei said with more confidence than he felt. "We've faced down gods and monsters. We can handle some political backlash. I like this female, partner. She has the spirit of a dragon. Strong offspring indeed." Drake's approval rumbled through Issei's mind. "There's one thing though," Issei added, a thought occurring to him. "If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Proper proposal, proper engagement, proper wedding. You might not care about romantic stuff, but you deserve it anyway." Xenovia blinked at him. "I just proposed to you. Isn't that enough?" "That was the intent," Issei said, standing and pulling her to her feet. "This is the romance." And before she could protest, he dropped to one knee right there in the park, still holding her hand. "Xenovia, you're the strongest, most incredible woman I know. You challenge me, you fight beside me, and you make me want to be better. I don't have a ring yet, but I promise I'll get you one. Will you marry me?" Xenovia stared down at him, eyes wide, and for a moment Issei worried he'd miscalculated. Then she laughed, a genuine, delighted sound he'd rarely heard from her, and nodded rapidly. "Yes, you idiot. I already asked you." "I know, but now it's official both ways," Issei grinned, standing and pulling her into a kiss. It wasn't their first kiss. They'd shared a few heated moments before, but this one felt different. It tasted of promise and future, of commitment and choice. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Xenovia had a rare, soft smile on her face. "We should head back. The others will worry if we're gone too long. And we need to break the news," Issei added, his stomach already churning at the thought. "That's going to be interesting." "Terrifying," Xenovia corrected. "But we face it together." "Together," Issei agreed. They teleported back to the Gremory residence, appearing in the entrance hall. Immediately, they could hear voices from the common room. The Occult Research Club was gathered, probably debriefing from the mission. "Ready?" Issei asked. Xenovia straightened her shoulders, slipping back into warrior mode. "Ready." They walked into the common room hand in hand. Rias Gremory sat in her usual chair, her crimson hair catching the light, her blue-green eyes sharp as she looked up at their entrance. Aquino stood behind her, elegant and composed. Asia sat on the couch, her gentle face lighting up when she saw them. Kaneko was in another chair, munching on cookies, while Kiba stood near the window and Gasper peeked out from behind a curtain. "There you are," Rias said, relief evident in her voice. "We were starting to worry. The cleanup crew reported the mission was successful, but you two disappeared before checking in." "Sorry, Bucho," Issei said, and felt Xenovia squeeze his hand supportively. "We needed to talk about something important. And now we need to tell all of you something." The room went quiet, all eyes on them. Issei could feel his heart pounding, could sense Xenovia's tension despite her calm exterior. "Issei and I are engaged," Xenovia announced with her typical directness. "We're going to be married." The silence that followed was deafening. Asia's face went pale. Aquino's eyes widened. Kaneko stopped mid-chew. Kiba looked genuinely shocked. Gasper fainted behind the curtain, and Rias's expression was carefully controlled, but Issei had known her long enough to see the flash of pain in her eyes before she masked it with a smile. "I see," Rias said quietly. "This is sudden." "I know," Issei said, feeling guilt twist in his gut. He knew Rias had feelings for him, knew several of the girls did. This was going to hurt people he cared about. "But it's what we want. What we both want, Issei-san." Asia's voice was tiny, tears already welling in her green eyes. "You're getting married?" Xenovia's grip on his hand tightened. She was tense, ready for a fight even though the battleground was emotional rather than physical. Rias stood, smoothing her skirt, her composure remarkable. She walked over to them, and for a terrible moment Issei thought she might forbid it. As his king, she technically could. But instead, she reached out and took both their free hands. If this is truly what you both want, she said, and her voice only wavered slightly, then as your king and your friend, I'll support you. But Issei, she looked directly at him, and he could see the depth of feeling in her eyes. You're sure? Marriage is permanent. There's no going back. I'm sure, Issei said firmly, meeting her gaze. Ria sighed. Don't, she interrupted gently. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Just be happy. Both of you. She released their hands and stepped back, her smile more genuine now despite the sadness underneath. I'll begin making arrangements. A wedding between a devil and a former exorcist will require diplomatic finesse, but the Gremory family has resources. Bucho. Issei started, but she waved him off. Aquino, make some tea. We have plans to make. Rias returned to her chair, already slipping into the role of organizer and leader, using duty to mask emotion. Aquino moved to comply, her usual playful demeanor subdued. Of course, Bucho. Congratulations, Issei-kun, Xenovia. I hope you'll both be very happy. Asia had buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. Issei moved toward her instinctively, but Xenovia held him back with a slight shake of her head. Instead, Kaneko surprised everyone by getting up and sitting next to Asia, putting a small hand on the blonde girl's shoulder. It's okay to be sad, Kaneko said quietly. But they deserve to be happy too. Kiba approached, offering his hand to Issei with a genuine smile. Congratulations, Issei. You too, Xenovia. This is unexpected, but I'm glad for you both. You fight well together. Perhaps you'll live well together too. Thanks, Kiba, Issei said, shaking his hand gratefully. Gasper had recovered from his faint and emerged from the curtain, still looking shell-shocked. And marriage? That's so grown up. Congratulations, I think? Thank you, Gasper, Xenovia said with one of her rare, small smiles. As the initial shock wore off and the reality settled in, the room slowly filled with conversation about logistics, plans, and questions. Issei found himself answering queries about timing. Soon, they both agreed. Why wait? About the ceremony, no idea yet. About where they'd live, they need to discuss that. Through it all, he kept glancing at Xenovia, who met his gaze each time with that determined look that had first attracted him to her. They were really doing this. In a world of chaos and constant battle, they were choosing each other, choosing to build something permanent. One question, Aquino said as she served tea, her tone carefully neutral. Have you consummated this engagement yet? Aquino! Multiple voices chorused. Xenovia, completely unfazed, replied, Not yet, but we plan to. Thoroughly. Issei choked on the tea he just sipped, coughing violently while his face turned crimson. Some things about Xenovia would never change, and honestly, he wouldn't want them to. As the evening wore on and plans began to take shape, Issei realized that this was just the beginning. They'd have to inform the church, deal with devil nobility, navigate political complications, and face the reactions of the wider supernatural world. There would be challenges, definitely pushback, probably some threats. But looking at Xenovia, seeing the way she handled each question and concern with her straightforward confidence, the way she unconsciously moved closer to him as if they were already a unit, Issei felt certain they could handle it. Partner, Drake spoke into his mind, you have chosen well. This path will not be easy, but the worthy paths never are. I will support you, as I have since you first awakened me. Thanks, Drake. That means a lot. Just promise me one thing. When you have offspring, teach them to be strong. The blood of dragons should produce warriors worthy of legend. One step at a time, buddy. One step at a time. Later that night, after the meeting had broken up and everyone had retired to their rooms, though Issei knew some would be crying themselves to sleep, he and Xenovia stood together in the hallway outside their respective rooms. You okay? Issei asked quietly. I hurt them, Xenovia said, her usual bluntness edged with regret. Asia especially. I didn't mean to, but I knew I would. Yeah, Issei sighed. Me too. But Xenovia, we can't live our lives for other people's expectations or feelings. We have to choose our own happiness too. She looked at him, nodded slowly. You're right. And you're my happiness, Issei Hayato. My choice. And you're mine, he said, pulling her into a gentle embrace. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow, we start planning a wedding. Tomorrow, she agreed. But she didn't move, just stayed in his arms, and Issei held her, this fierce warrior who'd chosen him, who'd proposed with the same courage she showed in battle. Finally, reluctantly, they separated and retired to their own rooms. Issei lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. Engaged. He was engaged. To Xenovia. It still felt surreal, but it also felt right. He thought about the future, their wedding, their life together, the battles they'd face side by side not just as allies but as husband and wife. He thought about the complications ahead, the political maneuvering, the hurt feelings of friends who'd wanted different outcomes. And despite all of it, despite the challenges and the chaos that was sure to come, Issei smiled. He'd faced gods and monsters, survived impossible odds, and died and been reborn as a devil. Planning a wedding and building a marriage with Xenovia? That was just the next adventure, and this time, he was choosing it willingly, walking into it with his eyes open and his heart full. Tomorrow, they'd start making it real. Tonight, he'd just enjoy the feeling of having made a choice that felt completely, absolutely right. Sleep, partner, Drake advised. You'll need your strength. If I know anything about weddings, they're almost as exhausting as combat. Great. Just great. But Issei was still smiling as he drifted off to sleep, dreams filled with blue hair and green eyes and a future he was actually excited to face. The engagement was announced. The journey was beginning, and somewhere in the house, Rias Gremory stood at her window, looking out at the moon, a single tear sliding down her cheek before she wiped it away and squared her shoulders. Life went on. Love found its path. And tomorrow would bring new challenges and new choices. But for tonight, in this moment, Issei Hayato and Xenovia were engaged, and that simple truth would change everything. The week leading up to the wedding had been absolute chaos. Issei had vastly underestimated the complexity of organizing a wedding between a devil and a former exorcist. What he'd imagined as a simple ceremony had exploded into a massive political event that required the coordination of 3 factions, multiple noble houses, and enough diplomatic maneuvering to make his head spin. Hold still, Kiba said for the 3rd time, adjusting Issei's tie. They were in one of the Gremory estate's many preparation rooms, and Issei felt like he might actually vomit from nervousness. I can't believe this is happening, Issei muttered, staring at himself in the mirror. He wore a custom-made suit that blended devil fashion with human styling, black with subtle red accents that matched the Gremory colors, but cut in a modern style. He looked grown up. Responsible. Like someone who was actually getting married. Believe it, Kiba said with an amused smile. In 1 hour, you'll be a married man. Partner, your heart rate suggests you're more nervous than when we faced Kokobile, Drake observed from within the boosted gear. That's because I could punch Kokobile. I can't punch my way through a wedding ceremony. Fair point. Though I suspect your bride could, if necessary. Despite his nervousness, Issei smiled. That was absolutely true. Xenovia approached marriage the same way she approached everything, with fierce determination and absolute commitment. Over the past week, she'd thrown herself into wedding planning with the intensity of preparing for battle, memorizing vows, practicing the ceremony, and even, to everyone's shock, taking lessons in makeup and formal presentation from Akino. How's Xenovia doing? Issei asked Kiba, who had been running messages between the preparation areas. Honestly? She looks terrified, but in that way she gets before a big fight where you know she's going to dominate anyway. Kiba stepped back, examining his work. There. You look perfect. Gasper, what do you think? Gasper emerged from the corner where he'd been hiding, looking adorable in his own small suit. Issei-senpai looks very handsome. Xenovia-san will be happy. A knock at the door interrupted them, and Serzex Lucifer, Rias's older brother, and one of the 4 great Satans, entered, looking regal in his formal attire. Issei-kun, Serzex greeted him warmly. How are you holding up, Lord Lucifer? Issei bowed respectfully, though Serzex had asked him repeatedly to be less formal. I'm managing. Nervous is natural, Serzex said kindly. I was a wreck at my own wedding. Grafia had to threaten me with violence to get me down the aisle. He paused, then added with a slight smile, though she later admitted she was just as nervous. "How's the political situation?" Issei asked. That had been the biggest headache of the week. "Surprisingly smooth, actually," Xenovia replied. Michael himself agreed to attend and offer a blessing, which has mollified most of the church's concerns. The fact that Xenovia is no longer officially part of the church helps. She's a devil now, so technically this is a devil wedding with Christian elements rather than a true interfaith marriage. Still unprecedented, but manageable. And the devil nobility? Some grumbling about bloodlines and tradition, but nothing serious. Your reputation as the Red Dragon Emperor carries significant weight, and Xenovia's strength is undeniable. Most see this as a strategic alliance that strengthens the Gremry peerage. Xenov's expression turned more serious. There may be challenges ahead, especially if you have children. A child born of a devil with sacred gear potential and a former exorcist turned devil. That's completely unprecedented territory. Children. The words sent a jolt through Issei. They talked about it, of course. Xenovia had been characteristically blunt about wanting children eventually, but the reality of it felt distant, something for the future. Right now, he was just trying to get through the wedding. "One crisis at a time," Issei said weakly. Xenovia laughed. "Wise approach. Now are you ready?" "It's almost time." Issei took a deep breath, looked at himself one more time in the mirror, and nodded. "Yeah. I'm ready." The ceremony was being held in a specially prepared hall within the Gremry estate. The space had been transformed into something breathtaking, a fusion of devil grandeur and sacred aesthetics that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Devil noble crests adorned the walls alongside subtle Christian symbolism that had been carefully chosen to not offend either side. Flowers in red, white, and blue filled the space, roses for the Gremry house, white lilies for purity, and blue hydrangeas for Xenovia. Magical lights floated throughout the hall, creating an ethereal ambience that made everything feel dreamlike. The guests were a who's who of the supernatural world. Devil nobility filled the left side of the hall. Issei recognized several lords and ladies from various houses, all dressed in their finest. On the right side sat representatives from the church, looking distinctly uncomfortable but maintaining diplomatic courtesy. Scattered throughout were familiar faces, Sona Citri and her peerage, representatives from the fallen angels led by Azazel, who had insisted on attending, and even a few former exorcists who'd known Xenovia in her previous life. At the front of the hall stood an altar that represented both traditions, a devil ceremonial platform enhanced with Christian elements. Michael himself stood ready to offer a blessing, his presence a powerful statement about the new alliance between factions. Beside him was a devil officiant who would conduct the actual ceremony. Issei stood at the altar, trying not to fidget. Kiba stood beside him as best man, offering silent support. Behind them, the rest of Rias's peerage was arranged. Each member had a role in the ceremony. The music began, a haunting melody that blended orchestral devil composition with sacred hymnal elements. The guests rose, and then Issei saw her. Xenovia appeared at the entrance, and Issei forgot how to breathe. She wore a wedding dress that was somehow perfectly her, elegant but practical, beautiful but strong. The gown was white with blue accents, fitted at the top to show her athletic figure but flowing into a full skirt that didn't restrict movement, because of course Xenovia would ensure her wedding dress allowed for combat mobility if necessary. Her blue hair had been styled elaborately, partially up with the rest falling in soft waves. She wore minimal makeup, but her green eyes seemed to shine with an inner light. But what struck Issei most was her expression. Xenovia, who faced down gods and monsters without flinching, looked absolutely terrified and completely determined at the same time. Her hands were clenched at her sides, and she was walking down the aisle with the same purposeful stride she used approaching battle. Walking beside her, giving her away, was Rias Gremry. Issei's heart clenched at that. He knew what it must be costing Rias to do this, to literally give him to another woman. But she'd insisted, saying that as their king and friend, it was her duty and honor. She wore a stunning crimson gown and held Xenovia's arm with genuine affection, even as pain flickered in her eyes. As they passed each row, Issei caught glimpses of different reactions. Asia sat with tears streaming down her face, though she managed a small smile. Akino looked bittersweet but composed. Kaniko's expression was neutral, but she nodded slightly at Issei in approval. Azazel grinned like this was the best entertainment he'd seen in years. Finally, they reached the altar. Rias gently released Zenovia's arm, leaned in to whisper something in the blue-haired girl's ear, then turned to Issei. "Take care of her," Rias said quietly, "for his ears only. And let her take care of you. Be happy, Issei. That's all I want for you, Bucho." Issei started, but she shook her head, squeezed his hand once, and then moved to take her place with the others. Issei turned to Xenovia, who had climbed a few steps to stand beside him. Up close, he could see the slight tremor in her hands, the rapid rise and fall of her breathing. "Hey," he whispered. "You okay?" Terrified, she admitted, just as quietly. "But ready." "You." "Same," he said, and they shared a small, nervous smile. The officiant cleared his throat, and the ceremony began. "We are gathered here today," the devil officiant intoned, his voice carrying through the hall, "to witness and celebrate the union of Issei and Xenovia Quarta. This is a historic occasion, a marriage that bridges worlds, that represents the new era of cooperation between devils, angels, and humanity." He continued with formal words about the significance of marriage, the responsibilities and joys of union. Issei tried to focus, but he was mostly aware of Zenovia's presence beside him, the way her hand had somehow found his and gripped it tightly. Then Michael stepped forward, his angelic presence illuminating the space with gentle light. "Though I cannot perform this ceremony," Michael said, his voice kind, "I offer my blessing to this union. Xenovia, you served the church faithfully for many years. Though your path has changed, your courage and devotion remain admirable. Issei, you have proven yourself a warrior of honor who fights to protect others. Together, may you find strength, joy, and purpose." He raised his hands, and gentle light washed over them both. Issei felt warmth and peace, and beside him, Xenovia made a soft sound of surprise. "I bless this union," Michael declared. "May your bond be strong, your love true, and your path forward bright." The significance of an angel blessing a devil wedding was not lost on anyone present. Quiet murmurs rippled through the crowd. The officiant resumed control. "Now, the couple has prepared their own vows. Issei?" Issei turned to face Xenovia fully, taking both her hands in his. He'd agonized over what to say, written and rewritten his vows a dozen times. In the end, he decided on simple truth. "Xenovia," he began, and was relieved his voice didn't shake too badly. "When we first met, you were my enemy. Then you became my ally, my teammate, my friend, and somewhere along the way, you became essential to me. You challenged me to be stronger, to think deeper, to face each day with courage. You don't ask me to be anything other than myself, and you give me the same honesty in return." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I know I'm not perfect. I'm still working on controlling my perversion, I make stupid decisions sometimes, and I'm probably going to mess up a lot as a husband, but I promise you this, I will always have your back. I will fight beside you, support your dreams, and face whatever comes with you. I choose you, Xenovia, today and every day forward. You're my partner, my warrior, my love. And I'm honored to become your husband." Xenovia's eyes were suspiciously bright, and her grip on his hands had tightened almost painfully. She swallowed hard, then began her own vows. "Issei," her voice was stronger than his had been, but he could hear the emotion underneath. "I was not raised to understand love or partnership. I was raised to fight, to serve, to sacrifice. When I lost my faith, I lost my purpose. I drifted, not knowing who I was or what I wanted. Then I watched you, a perverted idiot who somehow had more courage than anyone I'd ever met, who kept getting up no matter how many times you were knocked down, who cared about people so fiercely that you'd throw yourself into impossible battles to protect them." She took a breath. "You gave me a new purpose without even trying. You showed me what it meant to choose your own path, to fight for people rather than for doctrine, and you made me feel things I didn't have names for. I don't fully understand love yet, I'm still learning. But I know that I want you in my life permanently. I know that I will stand beside you against anything. I know that together, we're stronger than we could ever be apart." Her voice dropped, becoming almost tender. "I promise to protect you, to support you, to be honest even when it's uncomfortable. I promise to keep learning how to love you better. I promise to face every challenge as your partner and equal. You've given me purpose, joy, and a future I actually want. Thank you for choosing me back. Issei felt tears on his cheeks and didn't care. Around them, he could hear sniffling from the audience. Even some of the stoic devil nobles looked moved. The officiant produced 2 rings, crafted specially for this occasion. Issei's was silver with a subtle red stone, representing his dragon power. Xenovia's was silver with a blue stone, representing her warrior nature and former holy affiliation. The rings represent your eternal bond, the officiant explained. An unbroken circle, a promise that endures. Issei, place the ring on Xenovia's finger and repeat after me. With this ring I thee wed. Issei took Xenovia's ring with shaking hands and slipped it onto her finger. With this ring I thee wed. Xenovia, place the ring on Issei's finger and repeat. With this ring I thee wed. Xenovia took his ring, her hands steady despite the emotion in her eyes, and slid it onto his finger. With this ring I thee wed, by the power vested in me by the underworld and witnessed by the representatives of all 3 factions, the officiant declared, his voice ringing through the hall. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Issei, you may kiss your bride. Issei stepped closer to Xenovia, cupped her face gently in his hands, and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, aware of all the eyes watching, but then Xenovia wrapped her arms around him and kissed him back fiercely, and suddenly nothing else mattered. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the hall erupted in applause. Devils cheered, church representatives clapped politely, and their friends shouted congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, the officiant announced with a smile, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Hayato. Congratulations, partner. Drake's voice rumbled with genuine pleasure. You are now mated. May your union be strong and produce worthy offspring. Thanks, Drake. Let's not think about offspring just yet, okay? As you wish. For now, enjoy your victory. You've won a worthy mate. Issei and Xenovia turned to face their guests, hands clasped together. The walk back down the aisle was a blur of smiling faces, thrown flower petals, a human tradition someone had insisted on including, and overwhelming emotion. They emerged into the reception hall, which had been set up for the celebration to follow. But before they could enter, they had a moment alone in the corridor. We did it, Xenovia said, sounding almost disbelieving. We're married. We're married, Issei confirmed, and it felt surreal. How do you feel? Like I just won the most important battle of my life, she said, and then laughed. Is that a weird way to feel about getting married? For anyone else, maybe. For you? Perfect. He pulled her close. I love you, Xenovia Hayato. She stiffened slightly. They hadn't actually said those words to each other yet, had been building toward them. Then she relaxed into him, resting her head on his shoulder. I love you too, Issei, she said quietly. I think I have for a while. I was just too stupid to recognize it. They stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other, husband and wife, letting the reality sink in. Then the door burst open and Azazel stuck his head in. Hey lovebirds! You've got about 200 supernatural beings waiting to celebrate your union and consume massive quantities of food and alcohol. Reception time. The party that followed was legendary. The reception hall was enormous, filled with tables laden with food from multiple cultures and traditions, devil delicacies, human cuisine, and even some dishes from heaven that Michael had arranged. There was an open bar that several guests were already taking advantage of, a dance floor that would see heavy use as the night progressed, and a massive cake that somehow incorporated both devil and angelic aesthetics without being sacrilegious. Issei and Xenovia entered to cheers and were immediately swept into the receiving line, shaking hands and accepting congratulations from what felt like every supernatural being in existence. Xerxes and Graphia congratulated them warmly. Seraphal Leviathan, another of the great Satans, hugged them both enthusiastically despite barely knowing them. Sona offered proper congratulations while her peerage clapped politely. Azazel made inappropriate jokes that made Xenovia laugh and Issei blush. Then came the harder moments. Rias approached, and for a second, everything went quiet between them. Congratulations, she said, her smile bittersweet but genuine. You both look happy. That's all I wanted. Bucho. Issei started, but she shook her head. Rias, she corrected gently. Today, just call me Rias. I'm your friend first, your king second. She looked at Xenovia. Take care of him. He's precious to all of us. I will, Xenovia promised. And thank you? For everything. For accepting me into your peerage, for supporting this, for... She gestured helplessly. For being you. Rias pulled them both into a hug, quick but fierce. Be happy, she whispered, then released them and moved on, rejoining Aquino with slightly red eyes. Asia came next, and Issei's heart hurt at the sight of her tear-stained face. Asia. I'm happy for you, Asia said, and despite the tears, she meant it. Really, I am. You both deserve happiness. I just... She sniffled. I'll miss. You're not losing me, Issei said firmly, taking her hand. I'm still your friend, still your ally. That doesn't change because I got married. He's right, Xenovia added. And Asia, you're welcome in our home anytime. Your family. Asia managed a watery smile and hugged them both before hurrying off, overwhelmed. Kaneko approached with her usual quiet dignity. Congratulations. Don't be stupid newlyweds. Thanks, Kaneko, Issei grinned. I'll try. Xenovia, keep him in line. I will, Xenovia promised. The receiving line eventually ended, and the real party began. Dinner was served, multiple courses that showcased the best of each tradition. Issei and Xenovia sat at the head table, surrounded by the wedding party, trying to eat while constantly being interrupted for toasts and well wishes. Kiba stood to give the best man speech, which was eloquent and heartfelt, talking about Issei's growth from a newcomer to a warrior worthy of respect, and Xenovia's journey from enemy to beloved friend. Aquino, as maid of honor, gave a speech that managed to be both touching and slightly inappropriate, earning laughs from the crowd. Then Serzek stood, and the room quieted. When a great Satan spoke, people listened. This union, Serzek began, represents something I've dreamed of since we formed the alliance between three factions. It represents hope, cooperation, and the possibility of moving beyond ancient grudges. Issei Hayato and Xenovia Korda, now Hayato, come from different worlds. One was reborn as a devil, the other renounced her faith to become one. Both are warriors, both are strong, and together they're stronger still. He raised his glass. To the bride and groom. May your union be blessed with joy, strength, and many years of happiness. And may you both continue to prove that the barriers between our kinds are not as insurmountable as we once believed. To the bride and groom. The hall chorus, glasses raised. After dinner came dancing. A live band, somehow incorporating both devil and human musicians, began playing, and Issei led Xenovia onto the floor for their first dance as husband and wife. I don't really know how to do this, Xenovia admitted as they began swaying to the music. Neither do I, Issei confessed. Just follow my lead. And if I step on your feet, blame the sake I've been drinking. She laughed, and they danced, badly, awkwardly, but happily. Around them, other couples joined, Serzek and Grafia moving with practiced grace, Kiba politely asking Aquino to dance, even Gasper working up the courage to ask one of Sona's peerage members. Rias danced with her brother, and Issei caught her watching them once. When their eyes met, she smiled and raised her glass in silent toast. He smiled back, grateful beyond words for her grace and strength. As the night progressed, the party grew wilder. Devils, it turned out, knew how to celebrate. The dancing became more energetic, the drinking heavier, and the laughter louder. Xenovia proved she could drink most devils under the table, while Issei tried to keep up and failed spectacularly. Azazel cornered them at one point, slightly drunk and deeply amused. You two, he said, slinging arms around both their shoulders. You're either the bravest or stupidest people I know. Getting married in your teens, with everything you face? Crazy. Probably both, Issei admitted. Definitely both, Azazel agreed cheerfully. But you know what? I think it'll work. You've got what matters, trust, respect, and the ability to fight as one unit. Plus, he added with a wink, the sexual tension between you two has been obvious for ages. Glad you're finally doing something about it. Azazel! Issei protested, face flaming. Xenovia just laughed. He's not wrong. Eventually, as midnight approached and the party showed no signs of slowing, Grafia appeared at their side. If you wish to retire, she said diplomatically, No one would fault you. Your presence has been appreciated, but the night is yours. Issei and Xenovia exchanged glances. An unspoken agreement passed between them. Yeah, Issei said. I think we're ready to go. They made their excuses, thanked their guests, and slipped away amid knowing looks and teasing calls. Grafia had prepared a special suite for them. Their first night as husband and wife deserved privacy and comfort. The suite was beautiful. Luxurious furnishings, soft lighting, and a massive bed that dominated the room. Flower petals had been scattered across the sheets in what Issei suspected was Akino's doing. They stood in the center of the room, suddenly awkward despite having kissed multiple times and been physically close many times before. This was different. This was their wedding night, loaded with significance and expectation. So, Xenovia said, her confidence faltering for the first time all day. We're married. We are, Issei confirmed. And we're alone. Finally, she echoed. Then, with her characteristic directness reasserting itself, I want you, Issei. Not just for children or obligation. I want you because you're my husband and I love you. The words hit him like a physical force. I want you too, he said, closing the distance between them. Xenovia, are you sure? We don't have to rush. She kissed him, cutting off his words, and this kiss was different from all the others. It was heated, demanding, full of promise and desire. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Xenovia smiled, that rare, genuine smile that lit up her whole face. I've never been more sure of anything, she said. Make love to me, husband. And with the moonlight streaming through the windows, the sounds of celebration still distant but fading, Issei and Xenovia came together, not just as warriors or allies, but as husband and wife, sealing their vows in the most intimate way possible. I will give you privacy, partner, Drake said, amusement clear in his mental voice. But know that I am pleased. You have honored your mate and yourself this day. Thanks, Drake. Now seriously, privacy please. Of course. Enjoy your victory, dragon child. And Issei did, losing himself in his wife's embrace, in the joy and passion of their union, in the knowledge that they'd chosen each other, and made it real. Outside, the party continued. Devils celebrated, angels blessed, and fallen angels drank. The supernatural world had witnessed something unprecedented, a true union between former enemies, a marriage blessed by all factions. But inside their suite, Issei and Xenovia existed in their own world, creating their own future, one kiss and whispered promise at a time. They were married. They were in love. And whatever came next, they would face it together. That was the only certainty they needed. The morning sun streaming through unfamiliar windows woke Issei from the deepest sleep he'd had in months. For a moment, disoriented, he didn't recognize where he was. Then awareness flooded back. The wedding, the reception, the night that followed, and he felt his face heat despite being alone in. Wait. He turned his head and found Xenovia still asleep beside him. Her blue hair fanned across the pillow, one arm draped across his chest possessively even in sleep. Her face, usually so stern and focused, was peaceful and soft in slumber. My wife, Issei thought, and the words still felt surreal. Xenovia is my wife. As if sensing his attention, her eyes fluttered open, those striking green eyes that had challenged him, supported him, and now looked at him with sleepy affection. Morning, she mumbled, voice rough with sleep. Morning, Issei replied, unable to stop smiling. How do you feel? Xenovia considered this, stretching languidly. Sore in interesting places. Happy. Hungry. She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him. You, all of the above, he admitted. Plus completely terrified about what comes next. Good, she said, surprising him. If you weren't scared, I'd worry you weren't taking this seriously. She leaned down and kissed him, morning breath and all. We'll figure it out together. That's what married people do, right? Partner, you are awake, Drake's voice rumbled into his consciousness. I trust the mating was successful? Drake. Privacy. You invited me into your soul. Privacy is somewhat limited. But I will endeavor to be discreet about such matters going forward. Xenovia must have caught Issei's expression because she laughed. Drake commenting on last night? How did you? You get this specific look when you're talking to him mentally. I've learned to recognize it. She sat up fully, completely unself-conscious about her nakedness. We should probably get up. Grafia mentioned something about a post-wedding brunch. The next hour was spent getting ready, stealing kisses between showers and dressing, acting like the newlyweds they were. It felt strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. The brunch was a smaller affair than the wedding, just close friends and family. Rias and the Occult Research Club were there, along with Sirzek's, Grafia, and a few other close associates. The atmosphere was warm but tinged with the awkwardness of new dynamics. So Azazel said with a grin that promised mischief, "How was the wedding night, Azazel?" Multiple voices chorused. Xenovia, completely unbothered, replied while cutting into her pancakes, "Excellent." Issei exceeded expectations. Issei choked on his orange juice while the table erupted in various reactions. Gasper fainted. Kiba politely looked away. Kaniko's expression didn't change but her ears turned pink. Asia blushed crimson. Akino looked delighted. And Ria suddenly found her tea fascinating. "Xenovia!" Issei managed between coughs. "What?" "You did." She looked genuinely confused by the fuss. Grafia, ever the professional, smoothly changed the subject. "Now that the wedding is concluded, we should discuss your living arrangements. You'll need your own residence." That sobered everyone up. Issei and Xenovia exchanged glances. "We've been thinking about that," Issei said. "We appreciate everything the Gremory household has done, but yeah, we should probably have our own place. There's a property on the edge of the Gremory territory," Sirzek's offered. "Not large, but comfortable. Private enough for newlyweds but close enough that you can still fulfill your duties to Rias's peerage. I'd be happy to transfer it to you as a wedding gift." "That's too generous," Issei started. "It's appropriate," Sirzek interrupted kindly. "Your family now, in multiple ways. Besides, Rias needs her servants to be happy and settled. Consider it an investment in her peerage's stability." Rias nodded, though her smile was strained. "It's a good location. You'll like it." And so it was decided. Within a week, they'd moved into their new home, a modest house by Devil nobility standards but palatial by Issei's human upbringing. 2 stories, multiple rooms, a training area, because of course they needed one, and most importantly it was theirs. The first month of married life was an education in compromise and chaos. "Why?" Issei asked, staring at the smoking remains of what was supposed to be dinner. "Did you think adding holy water to the recipe would improve it?" Xenovia looked genuinely puzzled, standing in their kitchen wearing an apron that read "Kiss the Cook," a gift from Akino that Issei suspected was meant ironically. "The recipe said water? Holy water is just blessed water. I thought it would make the food more pure. We're devils. Holy water burns us." "Oh?" Xenovia blinked. "That explains the smoke." Issei sighed, but couldn't stay mad, not when she was trying so hard. Xenovia approached cooking the same way she approached combat, with absolute commitment and a fundamental misunderstanding of the rules. This was her 3rd attempt at making dinner this week, and each had been progressively more disastrous. "Okay," he said, opening windows to clear the smoke. "New rule. No holy water in cooking. In fact, no holy anything in food preparation." "Noted," Xenovia said seriously, pulling out a small notebook where she'd been documenting cooking lessons. She approached domestic life like military training, taking notes, practicing techniques, treating every meal as a mission to be accomplished. It was adorable and frustrating in equal measure. "How about we order takeout tonight?" Issei suggested. "Tomorrow, I'll teach you how to make something simple. Like rice. Just rice. We'll start there." "Rice is a staple," Xenovia agreed. "Mastering staples is tactically sound." Living together revealed all sorts of quirks neither had fully appreciated before. Xenovia organized everything with military precision. Their closet was arranged by color and type, their bathroom supplies lined up with perfect spacing, even their bookshelf was alphabetized. She woke at 5 a.m. every day for training, regardless of how late they'd stayed up. Issei, by contrast, was naturally messy and preferred sleeping in when possible. He left clothes on the floor, forgot to put dishes in the sink, and had a habit of creating small disaster zones wherever he worked. "Issei," Xenovia said one evening, standing in their bedroom with her arms crossed, "why are there 7 pairs of socks on the floor?" "I was looking for matching ones," he offered weakly. "The matching ones are in the drawer." Organized by color. I know, I just. He trailed off, seeing her expression. I'll pick them up. But she was already gathering them, muttering about tactical deployment of laundry. Then she paused, looked at him, and softened. I'm being too rigid, aren't I? This is your space too. A little, he admitted. But I'm being too messy. We need to meet in the middle, and they did, slowly. Xenovia relaxed her organizational standards slightly. Issei made more effort to clean up after himself. They developed routines that worked for both. Issei would cook, since he was marginally better at it. Xenovia would clean, playing to her organizational strengths. They trained together in the mornings, though Issei negotiated the wake-up time to 6 a.m. as a compromise. School at Ko Academy added another layer of complexity. Walking into class as a married couple felt surreal. Hayada-kun, one of his classmates called during lunch break. Is it true you got married over the weekend? News had spread, of course. A student wedding was unusual enough, but given that everyone in the supernatural community knew, it was inevitable that rumors would reach the normal students too, appropriately modified to exclude the devil and angel parts. Yeah, Issei confirmed, unable to stop grinning. Xenovia and I got married. That's so cool. Another student enthused. You guys are so young though. Aren't you scared? Terrified, Issei admitted honestly. But we love each other, so we're making it work. Xenovia, sitting nearby with her own lunch, added without looking up, fear is natural. Courage is acting despite fear. We're married. We'll adapt. The matter-of-fact delivery made several students laugh, but Issei could see the admiration in their eyes. Xenovia's directness was becoming legendary. The bigger adjustment was within the occult research club. Their dynamic had fundamentally shifted. Issei and Xenovia were no longer just fellow servants under Rias. They were a married unit, a pair, and that changed the power balance. We have a mission in 3 days, Rias announced during a club meeting. Stray Devil in the northern sector. Issei, Xenovia, Kiba, and Kaneko will handle it. Actually, Xenovia interrupted politely, Issei and I should discuss this first. We need to coordinate our schedules. We have that appointment with the real estate office about property taxes. Rias blinked. Property taxes? Married life involves administration, Xenovia explained. We can't just accept every mission without planning. The room went quiet. This was new, a servant questioning, politely, but still questioning, their king's orders. Rias's expression flickered with something, surprise, irritation, hurt, before settling on understanding. Of course. Let's coordinate schedules going forward. You're right that marriage adds complications. The incident highlighted the new reality. Issei and Xenovia had responsibilities to each other that sometimes conflicted with their duties to the peerage. It required adjustment from everyone. Asia struggled particularly hard. She'd visit their new home, bringing baked goods, which were delicious and made Xenovia jealous of Asia's domestic skills, and tried to be supportive. But Issei could see the pain in her eyes. Asia, he said gently one afternoon when Xenovia was out, training with Kiba, we need to talk. About what, Issei-san? Asia asked, though her expression suggested she knew. About how you're feeling. About me and Xenovia being married. Asia's face crumbled slightly, but she held herself together. I'm happy for you both. Really, I know you are. But you're also hurt. And that's okay. You're allowed to be hurt. But I shouldn't be, Asia protested, tears welling up. You chose Xenovia. You love her. I should just accept that and move on, but I... She covered her face with her hands. I can't stop wishing it was me. Issei pulled her into a gentle hug, brotherly and comforting. Asia, you're precious to me. Always will be. That doesn't change because I married Xenovia. But you're right that things are different now, and we both need to accept that. I know, she whispered. I'm trying. It just hurts. I know it does. And I'm sorry. When Xenovia returned and found them talking, she didn't get jealous or upset. Instead, she joined them, sitting beside Asia and taking her hand. Asia, Xenovia said in her direct way, I know I took something you wanted. That makes us rivals, in a sense. But I also know you're a good person who wishes us well despite your pain. That's admirable. It's also lonely. She paused, seeming to choose words carefully. I'm not good at this emotional stuff. But Issei cares about you, and his happiness matters to me, so your happiness matters to me too, by extension. We're family, Rias's peerage. Can we find a way to move forward that doesn't hurt you so much? Asia looked surprised, then thoughtful. I think so. It'll take time. Time we have, Xenovia agreed. And I promise, I'll take good care of him. You don't have to worry about that. I know you will, Asia said, managing a small, genuine smile. You're perfect for each other, actually. It just took me a while to see it. These conversations happened with others too. Akino made peace with the new reality during a training session, telling Issei with her usual teasing tone, I suppose I'll have to find another target for my affections. Though watching you try to navigate married life is entertainment enough. Kaneko simply accepted it with her usual pragmatism. You're happy. She's happy. That's what matters. Don't mess it up. Even Rias, slowly and with visible effort, adjusted. She maintained her role as their king but respected their marriage, creating space for them to be a couple while still serving the peerage. You're handling this really well, Issei told her one day after a meeting. Rias smiled, though sadness flickered in her eyes. I'm trying. It's not easy, watching the person you care about build a life with someone else. But Issei, your happiness matters more than my feelings. And seeing you with Xenovia, seeing how you've grown. She paused. You made the right choice. I can see that now. Bucho, it's okay, she interrupted gently. Really. I'm genuinely happy for you both. Just, let me adjust at my own pace, okay? Of course, Issei agreed, grateful beyond words for her grace. Not everything was emotional drama and adjustment. There were also moments of pure joy and ridiculous comedy, like the time Xenovia tried to do laundry and mixed the whites with the colors, turning half their clothes pink. It's tactical camouflage, she insisted, holding up a formerly white shirt that was now distinctly salmon-colored. Pink is unexpected in combat. We're not wearing pink to battles, Issei said, trying not to laugh. Why not? The psychological effect, no. Or when Issei attempted to assemble furniture for their home office and ended up with pieces left over and a desk that wobbled dangerously. I think you missed some steps, Xenovia observed, reading the instruction manual upside down, which explains some things. I followed the pictures. The pictures show these extra pieces being used. Well, where do they go? They ended up calling Kiba, who assembled it correctly in 20 minutes while politely not mentioning the mistakes. There were also the good moments. The quiet evenings curled up together reading, Xenovia working through a book on tactics while Issei studied summoning theory. The training sessions where they pushed each other to new heights, learning to anticipate each other's moves until they fought as a single unit. The nights when they'd cook together, simpler recipes that Xenovia couldn't catastrophically ruin, sharing stories and dreams. Do you think about the future? Xenovia asked one night as they lay in bed. Beyond tomorrow's missions and next week's schedules? Sometimes, Issei admitted. What are you thinking about? Children, she said bluntly, making his heart skip. I know we talked about it before, about wanting strong offspring. But now it's different. I think about what kind of parents we'd be, what our child would be like, your dragon power, my former holy affiliation, both of us devils now. It's unprecedented. Scary thought, Issei said honestly. Very scary, she agreed. But also exciting. Not yet, she added quickly. We need to settle into being married first, need to be stable. But eventually. I'd like that. With you. Me too, Issei said, pulling her closer. When we're ready. When we've figured out how to keep ourselves alive, maybe we can think about bringing someone new into this crazy world. Deal, Xenovia said, and kissed him. The female speaks wisely, Drake commented. Establishing a strong foundation before producing offspring is strategic. Though I eagerly await meeting your children, partner, a dragon-blessed child with holy heritage, fascinating, one step at a time, Drake, indeed. For now, enjoy your mate. The future comes soon enough. 2 months into married life, they'd developed genuine rhythms and routines. They knew each other's habits. Issei knew that Xenovia liked her coffee black and strong enough to dissolve steel, that she muttered in Latin when stressed, that she secretly loved terrible action movies. Xenovia knew that Issei needed exactly 7 minutes to wake up properly, that he organized his manga collection with religious devotion, that complimenting his cooking made him ridiculously happy. They fought sometimes, about housework division, about mission priorities, about whose turn it was to deal with paperwork. But they were learning to communicate, to compromise, to choose their battles. Is this what being married is? Xenovia asked one evening, surveying their home, lived in now, with both their possessions scattered around, photos from the wedding on the walls, a space that was truly theirs. I think so, Issei replied. Figuring things out together. Building a life bit by bit. It's harder than I expected, she admitted. But better too. I like having a home. Having you? Having this. She gestured vaguely at the comfortable normalcy of their evening. Me too, Issei said, wrapping an arm around her waist. Even with the disasters and adjustments, and occasional crises, especially with those, Xenovia corrected. They make the quiet moments better. A knock at the door interrupted them. Ria stood outside, looking apologetic. Sorry to interrupt your evening, she said. But we have a situation. Stray devils in the eastern sector, plural. We need the full peerage. Issei and Xenovia exchanged glances, their married couple communication already efficient enough that words weren't needed. Give us 5 minutes to gear up, Issei said. We'll meet you at the location, Xenovia added. Rias nodded and teleported away. They moved through their home with practiced efficiency now, Xenovia retrieving her battle outfit from the closet they'd designated for combat gear, Issei checking his sacred gear, both preparing mentally for the fight ahead. Ready? Xenovia asked, now dressed in her familiar combat attire, Durandal manifesting in her hand. Ready, Issei confirmed, red gauntlet gleaming on his arm. They teleported together, arriving at the battle site as a unit. The Occult Research Club was assembled, along with allies from Sona's peerage for backup. The stray devils were powerful, numerous, and dangerous. But as Issei and Xenovia fell into combat formation, moving in perfect synchronization, covering each other's weaknesses and amplifying each other's strengths, he felt a surge of confidence. They'd spent 2 months learning to live together. In that time, they'd grown stronger, not just individually, but as partners. Married life had its challenges, but it also had its advantages. Left flank. Xenovia called, and Issei was already moving, his attack combining with hers to take down 2 strays at once. They fought like they'd been doing this for years, like they could read each other's minds. And when the battle ended, victorious and only slightly worse for wear, they stood together surveying the aftermath. Good work, Ria said, approaching. You two are becoming quite the team. We're married, Xenovia said simply. We're supposed to be a team, and we're getting better at it every day, Issei added, taking his wife's hand. As they teleported home, cleaned up, and fell into bed exhausted but content, Issei reflected on the past 2 months. They'd stumbled through disasters, navigated emotional minefields, learned each other's quirks, and built something real. It wasn't perfect. They still had a lot to learn. But they were learning together. Hey Xenovia? He said into the darkness. She replied sleepily. Thanks for marrying me. Thanks for saying yes, she replied. Now sleep. We have training at 6 a.m. You mean 6:15, he corrected. We compromised, remember? Fine. 6:15. But only because I love you. Love you too, he murmured, already drifting off. Settled life wasn't always easy. New rhythms took time to establish. But they were making it work, one day, one compromise, one shared moment at a time. And that, Issei thought as sleep claimed him, was exactly what marriage should be.